You know what the problem with conquering half the galaxy is? You start believing your own propaganda. Commander Vexthor of the Kralian Empire had that exact problem. 7 feet of armored muscle, 4 arms that could crush steel, and an ego the size of a small moon. He'd raised 14 colonies, enslaved 6 species and never, not once, lost a battle. His war flagship, the Crimson Talon, hung in orbit above the human colony of New Bergen like a promise of death. And right now he was laughing. This? Vexthor gestured with one of his massive claws at the viewscreen, his mandibles clicking in amusement. This is what the humans sent to negotiate. On the screen stood Ambassador Rena Kowalski, 5'3" in her sensible flats, wearing a gray pantsuit that had seen better days. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No weapons, no armor, no intimidating entourage, just her, a datapad, and that infuriating smile. Sir, his tactical officer, a nervous Kralian named Zexaril, shifted uncomfortably. The human government insists we hear her terms before proceeding with the invasion. Terms? Vexthor's laugh boomed across the bridge. They want to give us terms? We have 40 warships in orbit, weapons locked on every major city. What could this creature possibly offer that would make us reconsider? The rest of the bridge crew joined in the laughter. It was the kind of laughter that comes from centuries of military dominance, from never having met an enemy you couldn't crush. Safe laughter. Confident laughter. Stupid laughter. Bring her aboard, Vexthor commanded, wiping a tear from his primary eye. I could use the entertainment. It's been a dull campaign. 20 minutes later, Rena Kowalski walked onto the bridge of the Crimson Talon like she owned the place. Not strutting, not posturing, just walking. She nodded politely to the guards, smiled at a confused ensign, and stood in front of Vexthor with her hands clasped in front of her. Commander, she said pleasantly. Thank you for seeing me. Vexthor leaned forward in his command throne, all 4 arms crossed. Human, you have 5 minutes to amuse me before I turn your colony into ash. Speak. Rena's smile never wavered. I'd like to offer you a choice, actually. A very simple one. Oh? One of Vexthor's mandibles twitched in what might have been curiosity. And what choice is that? You can leave. Now. Take your fleet. Go back to Kralian space, and we'll forget this ever happened. Or, she paused, consulting her datapad, you can stay and find out why every species that's ever attacked humanity has eventually, shall we say, regretted it. The bridge erupted in laughter again. Even Zexaril allowed himself a chuckle. Vexthor stood, towering over the small human woman. Let me tell you what I know about humans, Ambassador. You're weak, fragile. Your bodies break if you fall wrong. You die if the temperature drops too far or rises too high. You need constant food, constant water, constant sleep. You're not even apex predators on your own world. You're prey animals that got lucky with opposable thumbs. That's actually not entirely wrong, Rena admitted, still smiling. We are pretty fragile. Terrible design, honestly. I mean, our spines are a disaster. Don't even get me started on wisdom teeth. Then, what? Vexthor leaned down until his face was inches from hers. Makes you think you can threaten me? Rena looked up at him, and for just a moment something flickered behind her eyes. Something old. Something patient. Something that had watched empires rise and fall and had taken notes. I'm not threatening you, Commander. I'm warning you. There's a difference. Enlighten me. Rena tapped her datapad. Let me ask you something. How many species in this galaxy have internal combustion engines? Vexthor blinked. What? Simple question. How many species independently invented engines that run on controlled explosions? What does this have to do with anything? Humor me. Vexthor glanced at his tactical officer, who shrugged. Most species develop plasma drives directly, Commander. Internal combustion is considered primitive, inefficient. Exactly. Rena beamed like a teacher whose student just got the right answer. Do you know why it's inefficient? Because it's insane. You're literally setting off thousands of tiny explosions per minute, and somehow using that to move forward. What sane species does that? Your point, human. Vexthor's patience was wearing thin. My point is that humans looked at explosions and thought, yes, let's harness that. We looked at fire and thought, let's control it. We looked at atoms, the fundamental building blocks of reality, and thought, what if we split them? We're not strong like you, Commander. We're not fast. We're not even particularly smart compared to some species. But we're creative, and we're stubborn, and we absolutely refuse to accept that anything is impossible. She tapped her datapad again. Do you know what happened to the Drevik horde when they invaded Earth 70 years ago? Vexthor's mandibles stopped clicking. The laughter on the bridge died. The Drevik, Rena continued conversationally, were convinced humans would surrender after they destroyed our moon bases. Showed us they meant business. Killed about 2 million people in the first week. Horrible tragedy. We mourned. We grieved. And then we got angry. The Drevik were destroyed by some kind of superweapon. Zexeril said quietly. That's all the records show. Not a superweapon, Rena corrected. That would imply we built it for warfare. No, what wiped out the Drevik invasion fleet was something we originally designed to move asteroids for mining operations. We just repurposed it. Turns out if you can move asteroids, you can also throw that significant fractions of light speed. The Drevik flagship went from terrifying war machine to expanding cloud of plasma in about 3 seconds. She smiled wider. We named the weapon the Pebble. Because we thought it was funny. Vexthor forced himself to laugh. One victory against an inferior foe hardly makes you a threat to the Kralian Empire. Oh, I'm not done. The Synthetic Collective, 30 years ago. Remember them? Conquered 6 species in 2 years. Perfect coordination, no emotions, superior logic. They attacked our colony on Proxima Station. Thought they'd easily overcome illogical humans. I heard the collective withdrew from human space suddenly. Zexeril said. They did. Rena nodded enthusiastically. Want to know why? We introduced them to computer viruses. Not military ones, civilian ones. Specifically, we showed them the concept of spam email, clickbait, and computer viruses designed by bored teenagers. The collective spent so much processing power trying to filter out our digital junk that they couldn't maintain their war effort. Their perfect coordination got drowned in advertisements for things they didn't need and couldn't buy. She laughed. A genuine, amused sound. The final straw was when one of their command nodes got infected with a virus that made every tactical display show dancing cats. They decided humans were too chaotic to be worth conquering. Amusing stories, Vexthor growled, though his confidence was starting to crack just slightly. But I am not the Drevik, and I am not the collective. I am Kralian. We have conquered for 1,000 years. I know, Rena said. And now her voice was softer, almost pitying. That's what worries me. You've been winning for so long you've forgotten how to lose. And that means you've forgotten to be careful. She pulled up something on her datapad. Let me show you something. This is a scan of your fleet. 40 warships. Very impressive. Notice anything odd? Vexthor squinted at the display. Everything looked normal. His ships in perfect formation, weapons charged, shields at maximum. I don't see. Look at the spacing. Rena interrupted. Perfect geometric pattern. Optimal firing solutions. Textbook formation. She looked up at him. Also incredibly predictable. You're arranged exactly like you always are because that formation has never failed you. It hasn't failed because it's superior, Vexthor snapped, or because no one's ever exploited its weaknesses. Tell me, Commander, in all your battles, has anyone ever tried to not fight you? What? Every species you've encountered has tried to match your strength with their strength. Ships against ships. Weapons against weapons. Traditional warfare. Rena's smile turned sad. Humans don't do traditional. She tapped her datapad one more time. I'm now transmitting a file to your tactical station. Don't worry, it's not a virus. Just some light reading. Documents. Actually. Specifically, war plans. Zexeril's console lit up. He opened the files, his eyes widening. Commander, these are detailed plans for 70 different ways to destroy your fleet without firing a single shot, Rena finished. Plan 17 involves hacking your waste recycling systems and backing them up simultaneously across all 40 ships. Very messy, very unpleasant. Plan 23 involves introducing a harmless bacteria into your food supply that, while not dangerous to you, makes you all incredibly nauseous for about 3 weeks. Hard to wage war when everyone's throwing up. She scrolled through her datapad. Plan 42 is my personal favorite. We override your artificial gravity systems and set them to random fluctuations. Nothing dangerous, just annoying. Up, down, sideways spinning. Like being on a carnival ride that never ends. Your crew would mutiny within days. Vexthor stared at her. You're bluffing. There's no way you could. Oh, I'm absolutely not bluffing. Rena's smile was genuine. Warm even. Here's the thing about humans, Commander. We've been fighting each other for our entire history. Thousands of years of warfare, of strategy, of figuring out new and creative ways to make each other miserable. By the time we got to space, we'd already tried everything. Conventional warfare, guerrilla tactics, psychological operations, economic warfare, cyber attacks, biological weapons, and yes, even memes as weapons. Memes, don't ask. Long story. The point is, when you fight as long as we have, you learn that the best way to win isn't to be stronger, it's to be unexpected. She gestured at the view screen showing New Bergen below. This colony has 50,000 people. Farmers, teachers, engineers, families. They're not soldiers, but every single one of them knows 17 ways to improvise explosives from household materials, not because we're violent, but because we're human. We tinker, we experiment, we make things, and sometimes those things explode, and we go, huh, interesting, and write it down for later. Vexthor's four fists clenched. You think your primitive tricks frighten me? No, Rena said quietly. I think your pride won't let you be frightened, even when you should be. And that's what makes this so sad. She walked closer, forcing Vexthor to look down at her. I don't want to fight you, Commander. Honestly, fighting is expensive, it's messy, and people die. People I care about. But if you make me, if you force this, I will turn your conquest into such a prolonged, frustrating, expensive nightmare that you'll wish you'd never heard of humans. Her eyes hardened. We won't beat you with strength. We'll beat you with spite. With stubbornness. With the same insane persistence that made us look at the ocean and build boats. Look at the sky and build planes. Look at space and decide, yes, we belong there too. We'll make taking this colony cost more than it's worth. We'll make holding it impossible. And we'll make sure every other species in the galaxy knows that the mighty Kralian Empire couldn't break one small human colony. The bridge was dead silent. So here's my offer again, Rena said, pulling out a physical document. Actual paper. You leave. You tell your superiors that humans aren't worth the trouble. You save face. You save lives. And you save yourself from becoming a cautionary tale. Or, she placed the document on the armrest of his throne. You stay and we find out who gets tired first. A species that's conquered for 1,000 years, or a species that's been too stubborn to quit for 100,000. Vexthor looked at the document, at the small human woman, at his crew, who were no longer laughing. You're offering me terms of surrender, he asked slowly. I'm offering you an exit, Rena corrected. With dignity. Take it. And that smile, that infuriating, patient, knowing smile never left her face. Vexthor stared at the document like it might bite him. Around the bridge, his crew had gone from laughing conquerors to silent observers. You could have heard a pin drop, if anyone had been stupid enough to drop one. The tension was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. You, Vexthor said slowly, all four arms trembling slightly, are either the bravest creature I've ever met, or the most foolish. Probably both, Rena admitted cheerfully. It's a human thing. We're not great at risk assessment. There's this place on Earth called Australia, where everything is actively trying to kill you. Spiders, snakes, jellyfish, even the plants and humans looked at it and said, perfect vacation spot. So yeah, our survival instincts are questionable at best. Vexthor made a choking sound that might have been a laugh he tried to suppress. Vexthor shot him a glare that could melt hull plating. You think you can intimidate the Kralian Empire with stories and threats? Vexthor picked up the document, his claws leaving small tears in the paper. We have faced down species twice your size, with weapons you can't imagine. What makes you so special? Rena tilted her head, considering. Honestly? Nothing. That's the point. We're not special. We're average. Medium strength. Medium speed. Medium intelligence. Jack of all trades. Master of none. But you know what happens when you're average at everything. She didn't wait for an answer. You learn to cheat. You learn to adapt. You learn that rules are more like guidelines, and guidelines are really just suggestions. And suggestions are basically just someone's opinion. And opinions, well, we've got lots of those. She walked over to the view screen, looking down at New Bergen. From orbit it looked peaceful. Small cities connected by roads, farmland in neat squares, a few spaceports. Nothing threatening, nothing military. Let me tell you about the time humanity almost went extinct, Rena said, conversationally. About 70,000 years ago, something happened on Earth. Volcanic eruption, climate change. The scientists still argue about it. Point is, our population dropped to about 10,000 individuals. 10,000. We were this close. She held up her thumb and forefinger barely apart to being a footnote in galactic history that never got written. But you survived. Zexrel said quietly. We survived, Rena confirmed. You want to know how? We didn't fight the climate. We didn't try to be stronger than the volcano. We adapted. We moved. We learned. We figured out how to make tools, how to communicate better, how to work together, and most importantly, we learned how to hold grudges across generations. She turned back to Vexthor. That's what you're really up against, Commander. Not weapons. Not ships. You're up against a species that remembered being almost extinct and decided never again. We're still mad about that volcano, and it's been 70,000 years. How long do you think we'll stay mad at you? Vexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation and Kralian's. You're stalling, trying to make me doubt myself with words. Am I? Rena pulled out her datapad again. Zexrel, you seem like a reasonable officer. Could you pull up your long-range sensors? Focus on Sector 7, approximately 2 light hours out. Zexrel looked at his commander. Vexthor gave a curt nod. The tactical display shifted. For a moment, there was nothing. Then Zexrel's face went pale, which for a Kralian meant his red skin turned a sickly orange. Commander, his voice cracked slightly. There are ships. Hundreds of them. Human ships. They're in formation around. Is that a moon? Not a moon, Rena said pleasantly. Well, it was a moon. Now it's more of a weapon platform. We hollowed it out about 6 months ago when we heard the Kralian Empire was expanding in this direction. Took some work. Lots of drilling, but humans are good at mining. We've been doing it since we figured out rocks could be useful. She zoomed in on the display. The moon, or what used to be a moon, was now a massive structure bristling with weapons. Around it, human warships moved in precise patterns. That's the Retribution, Rena said, pointing to the largest ship. Terrible name, I know. The naming committee was very dramatic that day, but it works. And those smaller ships, those are the response fleet. About 300 vessels, all equipped with weapons that we definitely didn't steal from crashed alien ships and definitely didn't reverse engineer and definitely didn't improve upon. Vexthor's blood ran cold. You've had those ships there the entire time? Oh yes. Since before you even entered the system. We've been tracking your fleet for 3 weeks, ever since you left Kralian space. Humans are very good at seeing things coming. We've had to be, on Earth. The things that didn't see the predator coming didn't survive to reproduce. It's made us a bit paranoid. But hey, paranoia is just pattern recognition taken seriously. She smiled that infuriating smile again. Here's the fun part though. That fleet, it's not there to attack you. It's there to make sure you can't leave once you commit to attacking us. See, we don't want to destroy you, Commander. That would be wasteful. No, if you attack New Bergen, we want to capture you, study you, learn everything about Kralian military tactics, ship design, weapons technology, and then we want to send you home with a message for your empire. What message? Vexthor asked, hating how weak his voice sounded. They're not worth it. Rena's expression turned serious. Every species that's attacked us has either been destroyed or has given up and gone home. Not because we're stronger, but because we make victory so expensive, so difficult, so frustrating that continuing just doesn't make sense anymore. We're like a splinter, Commander. Small, insignificant, but so annoying that you'll do anything to get rid of it. She walked back to stand directly in front of him. The Drevik thought they could scare us. They couldn't. The synthetic collective thought they could outthink us. They couldn't. The Zorath Raiders thought they could overwhelm us with numbers. Spoiler alert, they couldn't either. You know what all of them had in common? Silence. They were all older than us. More advanced. More experienced. And they all assumed that meant they'd win. But experience can be a trap, Commander. It makes you predictable. It makes you rely on what's worked before. And humans, well, we're very good at finding patterns and breaking them. Vexthor looked at his crew, saw the doubt in their eyes, saw the fear creeping in around the edges of their confidence. This was supposed to be easy. Another colony, another conquest, another victory to add to the Empire's long list. But nothing about this small human woman and her calm smile felt easy. You're bluffing, he said again, but this time it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. Those ships could be empty. That moon could be a hollow threat. Could be, Rena agreed. Want to find out? Because I've got to tell you, Commander, if you're wrong, this becomes a very bad day for you. And if you're right and I am bluffing, well then you get to conquer a small farming colony. Congratulations. Very heroic. I'm sure the Empire will write songs about the day Vexthor the Mighty defeated 50,000 farmers and their families. She let that sink in. Either way you lose. Either you lose ships and lives and prestige, Or you win a battle that makes you look like a bully. Not a great position to be in. Zexeril cleared his throat. Commander, I'm detecting weapon signatures from that moon. Multiple types. Some I recognize, some I don't. If even half of those are functional, they're functional, Rena interrupted. We tested them last week. Accidentally destroyed an asteroid we were supposed to be mining. Oops. But hey, good to know they work. Vexthor's mind raced. He'd conquered 14 colonies. He'd never retreated, never surrendered, never backed down. The Krellian way was strength, dominance, victory. To leave now would be humiliating. But to stay and fight might be suicidal, and this human, this tiny, fragile, smiling human, knew exactly what he was thinking. I can see the wheels turning, Rena said gently. You're thinking about honor, about duty, about what the Empire expects, about your reputation. She stepped closer. Let me make this easier for you. Give you some cover. She held up her datapad. I'm going to send a message to your superiors. In it, I'm going to lie. I'm going to say that you showed up, assessed the situation, and made the tactical decision that New Bergen was too heavily defended to take without unacceptable losses. I'll say you were professional, strategic, smart. I'll make you look like a careful commander who doesn't waste lives on pointless battles. How does that sound? Why would you do that? Vexthor asked suspiciously. Because I don't want to fight you, Rena said simply. I really don't. You seem like a decent commander. You care about your crew, you've got a good tactical mind, and honestly, you've been pretty polite considering I walked onto your ship and basically threatened you for 20 minutes. I respect that. She gestured around the bridge. These soldiers, they're just doing their job. Following orders. They don't deserve to die because their empire picked a fight with the wrong species. And you don't deserve to have your career destroyed because you ran into humans before anyone warned you about us. Warned me about what? Rena's smile turned sad. That we don't fight like anyone else. That we don't think like anyone else. That we've spent our entire evolutionary history being the underdog, and we've gotten really, really good at it. You're a hammer, Commander. A very good hammer. Strong, effective, proven. But humans aren't nails. We're more like silly putty. You hit us and we just absorb it, reshape, and bounce back. She pulled up something else on her datapad. Want to see something funny? This is a human children's story. It's called The Three Little Pigs. 3 small creatures building houses, a big bad wolf trying to blow them down. First 2 houses fail, but the third one made of brick stands strong. And you know what the pig in the brick house does? What? Zexeril asked, actually curious now. He doesn't just survive. He tricks the wolf. Invites him to come down the chimney. Wolf falls into a pot of boiling water. Pig wins by being smarter, not stronger. We teach this to our children, Commander. From the age of 3 we teach them that the small can beat the large if they're clever enough. She laughed, a genuine sound. We've been preparing for you our whole lives. Not you specifically, but the idea of you. The big threat. The overwhelming force. The monster under the bed. And we've been figuring out ways to beat it since before we had written language. Vexthor sat back down in his command throne. The weight of command had never felt heavier. Around him his bridge crew waited. 40 ships in orbit. Thousands of soldiers ready to fight. The might of the Krallian Empire at his fingertips, and one human woman with a smile and a datapad, making it all feel worthless. If I leave, he said slowly, what guarantee do I have that you won't attack us as we go? My word, Rena said simply. I know that probably doesn't mean much to you. Different species, different values. But humans take promises seriously. It's a cultural thing. Break your word and you lose respect, trust, everything. So I give you my word as a representative of humanity and as someone who really wants to go home and have dinner with her family, that if you leave peacefully we will not pursue. She held out her hand. We'll even transmit safe passage coordinates. Make sure you get out of our territory without any incidents. Call it a professional courtesy. Vexthor looked at her hand. Small, 5-fingered, no claws. Weak by any physical measure. But in that moment it felt like the most dangerous thing on the ship. He stood towering over her once more. Tried to reclaim some of his dignity, some of his command presence. The Krallian Empire does not retreat. Then don't call it a retreat, Rena suggested. Call it a strategic redeployment. Call it reconnaissance. Call it whatever you want. The words don't matter, Commander. What matters is that tomorrow all your soldiers wake up alive, all my colonists wake up alive, and nobody has to explain to their families why someone died over a farming colony in the middle of nowhere. She kept her hand extended. Take the deal. Please. That last word, that please, was what did it. Not demanding. Not threatening. Just asking. One soldier to another, one person to another, to choose life over death. Vexthor reached out with one massive claw and gently clasped her hand. It disappeared entirely in his grip, and he was suddenly acutely aware of how easily he could crush it. How fragile humans really were, and how terrifying they were despite it. We will leave, he said formally. And we will report that New Bergen is too heavily fortified to be worth the cost of invasion. Rena's smile went from confident to genuinely relieved. Thank you, Commander. Sincerely. You just saved a lot of lives today. She released his hand and tapped her datapad one final time. I'm sending you those navigation coordinates now. Safe route out of human space. Also included is a file on human culture, our history, some of our better music. Consider it a gift. Maybe it'll help the next Kralian commander understand us a little better. Human music? Vexerl asked, curiosity overcoming his earlier fear. Oh yeah, we're very proud of our music. Fair warning though, once you listen to this thing called pop music, it gets stuck in your head for days. Catchy stuff. Annoying but catchy. Vexthor watched as she walked toward the exit, that same casual confidence she'd entered with. At the door she paused and looked back. Commander. One more thing. Yes? Tell your superiors to update their intelligence on humanity. We're not the same species that limped into space 200 years ago. We've grown. We've learned. We've adapted. And we're really tired of being underestimated. Her smile turned sharp. Next species that tries might not get an ambassador. They might just get the pebble. And with that she was gone, escorted off the ship by guards who looked distinctly relieved to see her go. Vexthor stood on his bridge, surrounded by the finest warriors of the Kralian Empire, and felt like he'd just survived something far more dangerous than any battle. Helm, he said quietly. Set course for Kralian space. Best speed. Sir? Vexthor looked surprised. We're really leaving? We're really leaving, Vexthor confirmed. He looked at the planet below, at the peaceful farming colony that had somehow defeated 40 warships without firing a shot. And when we get home, I'm recommending that humanity be classified as a level 5 threat. Level 5? Vexthor's eyes widened. Sir, that's reserved for species that could threaten the Empire itself. Exactly. Vexthor sat back in his throne, suddenly exhausted. They're not dangerous because they're strong. They're dangerous because they make you doubt. They make you think. They make you realize that maybe, just maybe, strength isn't everything. He pulled up the file Rena had sent, scrolled through images of human history, saw species after species that had underestimated them, saw the wreckage of the Drevik fleet, saw the synthetic collective's panicked retreat, saw a pattern of survival against impossible odds. They're survivors, he said softly. And survivors are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, because they've already lost everything once. They have nothing left to fear. The Crimson Talon turned away from New Bergen. 40 warships followed, the invasion fleet that had never failed, retreating from a farming colony. On the surface in a small command center, Rena Kowalski watched them go. Her assistant Marcus Chen, no wait, Marcus Thompson, no, Marcus Grant. Marcus Grant. That's better. Walked up beside her. Think they'll be back, he asked. No, Rena said, finally letting her smile drop. She looked tired. Older. They'll tell other species, though. Word will spread. Might buy us a few years of peace. And if someone else comes, Rena's smile returned. But this time it had teeth. Then we'll do what humans always do. We'll improvise. We'll adapt. We'll overcome. And we'll make them regret ever hearing the word human. She turned away from the window. Come on. I promised my daughter I'd make it home for dinner. And unlike some species, humans keep their promise. Behind her, the Kralian fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying with them a lesson that would echo through the galaxy. Humanity wasn't the strongest species, wasn't the smartest, wasn't the fastest or the most advanced, but they were the most stubborn, the most creative, the most willing to look at impossible odds and say, yeah, we can work with this. And in a galaxy full of ancient empires and powerful civilizations, that made them the most dangerous of all. Because you can defeat strength, you can outthink intelligence, you can outrun, but you can't outlast stubbornness. You can't predict creativity, and you absolutely cannot break the will of a species that's been breaking the rules since before they had rules to break. Vexthor learned that lesson. His empire would learn it too eventually. The question was, how many other species would have to learn it the hard way? Only time would tell. But if there was one thing humans were good at, it was teaching lessons. Sometimes gently, with smiles and diplomacy, and sometimes with moons turned into weapons and a willingness to make victory more expensive than defeat. Either way, the galaxy had been warned. Humanity was here, and they weren't going anywhere.